storage wars are mourning the shocking death of Darrell Sheets. Sheets passed away in his Lake Havasu home early this morning. He died by suicide. Sheets was a regular on storage wars, which followed people who bought unopened storage lockers in Southern California, hoping to strike it rich.
Darrell Sheets spent his life opening abandoned storage units and uncovering secrets other people had left behind. But some of the discoveries he made were far more disturbing than anything he could have imagined. And after his death, the secrets surrounding his final years would prove even more unsettling. So what exactly was hiding inside Darrell Sheets' storage unit? And did any of these disturbing discoveries reveal something about the final years of his life? Join us as we uncover what was found inside Darrell Sheets' storage unit and the shocking secrets it appeared to hold. The discovery that changed everything. Long before Darrell Sheets became the gambler, he had experienced a moment of horror that would shadow him for the rest of his days. It happened during a routine storage auction in San Diego, sometime in the early 2000s, when Darrell was still building his reputation as a savvy buyer with an instinct for hidden value. He had paid a few $100s for a unit that seemed unremarkable. Standard household items, some old furniture, a large tarp-covered bundle in the corner. But when Darrell peeled back that tarp, he came face to face with something no amount of experience could have prepared him for. A human hand, partially mummified, tumbled out from the wrapping. The rest of the body followed. Darrell stumbled backwards, his mind struggling to process what his eyes were seeing. He later confided to Reality Weekly that he knew right away it was a homicide victim, and he called 911 without hesitation. Investigators determined that the deceased was a woman in her late 30s who had passed away from blunt trauma, wrapped in multiple layers of plastic and abandoned in the locker. The perpetrator, her husband, had continued paying the rent for months before finally defaulting, leaving behind a grisly secret that Darrell had unwittingly uncovered. Unfortunately, the case left Darrell with nothing because the police had to confiscate the entire contents of the unit as evidence. 2 decades later, Darrell would step back into the auction world with renewed determination, but the San Diego incident lingered in his consciousness. Would he ever find a score so spectacular that it would overshadow that trauma? The windfall that made history. On a crisp October morning in 2011, a storage auction at Extra Space Storage in Van Nuys, California, drew a crowd of 15 bidders, including several familiar faces from the Storage Wars cast. Darrell Sheets arrived with his son, Brandon, then 22, ready to test his instincts against a locker that appeared to contain nothing more than household clutter. A floor lamp, some cardboard boxes, Christmas decorations, and the corner of a large wooden frame peeking out from the back. The auctioneer, Dan Dotson, kicked off the bidding at $500. Darrell studied the unit carefully, and after a tense back and forth with 2 other regulars, he secured the locker for $3,600, a sum that exceeded his monthly mortgage payment. His competitors shook their heads in disbelief. Brandon looked anxious, but Darrell wore his familiar confident grin. When they opened the unit on camera for the episode that would later air as The Empire Strikes Out, Darrell uncovered a treasure trove that would become legendary. When the padlock snapped off, he pulled the door up and saw expensive paintings stacked floor to ceiling. They were signed by Frank Gutierrez. Darrell and his son Brandon began pulling out the artwork. On camera, Darrell could barely contain himself. He immediately recognized the name Frank Gutierrez and understood that if the pieces were authentic, they could be worth thousands of dollars. By the time they finished, Darrell and his son had unearthed 12 original works of art, all carefully wrapped and preserved. The next morning, he contacted Kathy Gallegos, the owner of Avenue 50 Studio in Los Angeles, and a respected appraiser of Latin American art. She agreed to examine the collection. Gallegos spent 4 hours scrutinizing the paintings with a magnifying glass, a black light, and a reference book of Mexican artist signatures. She confirmed that all 12 were original oils on canvas, dating from Gutierrez's most productive period between 1985 and 1990. She told Darrell on camera that she had never encountered so many original Gutierrez's outside of a museum exhibition. Her written appraisal, filed in November 2011, rounded the value of the collection to $300,000. The centerpiece, a canvas titled El Viajero, the Traveler, depicting a suited man wandering through a desert with floating clocks, was appraised at $85,000 alone. Darrell sold 4 of the paintings within 6 months, 2 to a private collector in Santa Fe for $62,000 and 2 through a Dallas auction house for $50,000. He kept El Viajero for himself, hanging it in his Arizona living room. In 2019, he loaned it to the Phoenix Art Museum for a 3-month exhibition, where the catalog noted the painting's unusual provenance. Formerly the property of Mark G., convicted art fraud felon. The original owner had been sentenced to 8 years in federal prison in 2009 for selling forged lithographs. But one spectacular score doesn't define a career. What other gambles paid off for Darrell, and which ones left him shaking his head, striking gold and silver? During a Las Vegas episode, Darrell took another calculated risk, spending $1,000 on a locker that initially seemed like a total dud. Inside sat a widescreen TV, a bedroom set, and a mattress that he was relieved to find had no unpleasant surprises, a running joke among storage hunters. But his fortunes changed when he discovered a small suitcase tucked behind a stack of old clothes. At first, he dismissed its contents as cheap costume jewelry. Then he held one piece up to the sunlight and saw the unmistakable sparkle of real diamonds. Immediately, he got the contents appraised, and that revealed that the suitcase contained a 14-carat solid gold and diamond bracelet valued at $2,000, a genuine Tiffany and Comper necklace worth $1,500, and several other pieces that brought the total to $17,000. But jewelry wasn't the only source of windfall profits. In Season 5, Darrell bid approximately $15,000 on an unusually large locker that turned out to be a collector's paradise. As he and Brandon peeled back layers of cardboard, they discovered a treasure trove of toys and comics. Hundreds of G.I. Joes still in their original packaging. Rows of Hot Wheels cars from the 1960s and 1970s, and over 3,000 comic books stacked in long boxes. Many of the comics were first editions from the Silver Age, highly desirable among collectors. Darrell estimated he could sell each comic for about $10 on average, but some were worth significantly more. When a professional appraiser tallied the collection, the total value came to $100,000. He later told the AV Club that this find was particularly special because it evoked memories of his childhood. Darrell's ability to uncover historical treasures extended to other domains as well. In one locker, he found a handwritten letter from President Abraham Lincoln that eventually sold for $15,000 at auction. He also unearthed World War II memorabilia, including a soldier's footlocker filled with letters from the Pacific Theater, rare movie posters from Hollywood's golden age, and exquisite furniture by R. and Y. Augusti that he kept for his own home because, as he put it, was too beautiful to sell. Of course, not every gamble paid off. Darrell had his share of busts, lockers filled with trash, broken furniture, and the occasional unpleasant surprise. But he took the losses in stride, always looking ahead to the next opportunity. What discoveries left him momentarily speechless, though, were the ones that defied explanation. The skull that wasn't worth a fortune. In 2012, Darrell spent $1,150 on a locker in North Hollywood that appeared to contain old furniture, mildewed books, and boxes of miscellaneous junk. Buried in the back, wrapped in a 1973 newspaper, was a carved wooden skull about 10 inches tall. The skull featured glass eyes that seemed to track movement and a brass plaque reading Tempus Fugit, Latin for time flies. Through a small window in its cranium, Darrell could see brass gears and a wound spring. It appeared to be an antique clock. Darrell picked it up, examined the inscription on the back, "Made in Germany, 1892, and laughed nervously. He kissed the skull's forehead and joked that it probably was looking back at him. That clip became a fan favorite, replayed endlessly on YouTube compilations. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Contrary to internet folklore, the skull clock wasn't worth a small fortune. Darrell brought the piece to Tick Tock Tony, a horologist who specialized in antique timepieces. Tony examined the gears, the wood, and the aging on the brass, and delivered a sobering verdict. The skull was a clever reproduction, likely manufactured in the 1970s, with artificial patina applied to make it look older. Its actual value? Approximately $150. Darrell laughed it off on camera, as he always did. He later told the AV Club that the skull sat on his mantle for 2 years anyway because he enjoyed its quirky aesthetic. Even if it wasn't a financial windfall, he eventually sold it at a garage sale for a modest sum, nowhere near the thousands of dollars that would later circulate in clickbait articles. For a man who had made a career out of calculated risks, this was one gamble he wasn't willing to take. The man who bet on the unknown. Darrell Sheets entered the world on May 13, 1958, in Los Angeles County, California. His father, Jack Darrell, worked as a junk dealer and frequented auctions, and by the age of 12, young Darrell was accompanying him to estate sales, learning how to distinguish valuable metals from scrap, fine furniture from reproductions, and original art from prints. He dropped out of high school at 16, a decision he later expressed some regret about. But he never stopped educating himself. He worked as a truck driver, a construction laborer, and a carpet installer before committing fully to the storage auction business in 1981. His signature catchphrase, "This is the wow factor," became his trademark on Storage Wars whenever he uncovered something valuable or extraordinary in a locker. The moment resonated with viewers, and the phrase became synonymous with his fearless approach to the game. Fans would shout it at him on the street for years afterwards, and he embraced the fame with genuine warmth, signing autographs and posing for photos at conventions and gem shows across the country. Darrell was fearless, never hesitating to drop substantial sums on a locker, unconcerned whether it contained a Picasso or a pile of refuse. Even when he lost, and he lost plenty, he brushed off his defeats with a chuckle rather than dwelling on them. But in early 2019, Darrell's admirers discovered that even Darrell Sheets was not immune to the human body's vulnerabilities. The 60-year-old reality star had been sick for 3 months, but it wasn't until he had a mild heart attack that he found out he had congestive heart failure and a severe issue going on with his lungs. He announced the news on Instagram, explaining that he had been very sick for 3 months and had suffered a mild heart attack, only to discover the underlying conditions. He needed surgery. He asked his followers for prayers, expressing gratitude for their support and acknowledging that the journey had been a great ride. He credited his fiancée, Romney Snyder, for standing by him, describing her as a good woman he loved deeply. Darrell underwent the procedure and began a long recovery. He lost over 100 pounds through diet and exercise. He later admitted that he had been a closet diabetic who ate whatever he wanted and masked it with diabetic pills, and he was now paying the price. His heart function improved, but he was never the same. The man who had spent decades opening other people's lockers was now fighting to keep his own body from shutting down. The health crisis forced him to step back from Storage Wars. His son, Brandon, who had appeared alongside him on Storage Wars through Season 9, moved to Arizona and took up a career in real estate. Darrell eventually relocated to Lake Havasu City, Arizona, and opened an antique store called Havasu Show Me Your Junk. The store was his new locker, a place where he could still hunt for treasures, but on his own terms. Locals and fans could visit him there. He was still the gambler, but the stakes were lower now. The health crisis had revealed just how fragile he was, and the years ahead would test him in ways no storage locker ever could. But only a few years after fans breathed a sigh of relief that Darrell had come back from the brink, something far more insidious was waiting in the shadows. The final chapter. Darrell's final public appearance took place at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show in February 2026. He signed autographs for 3 hours, posed for countless photographs, and told attendees that he was done with lockers, this time for good. Whether he truly meant it will never be known, because 2 months later, on the night of April 22nd, Darrell's girlfriend returned to their Lake Havasu City home after picking up his granddaughter from work. What she walked into was a nightmare. According to the incident report later released by the Mojave County Sheriff's Office, Darrell had been sitting in the garage earlier that evening, scrolling through his phone. He had received text messages from his daughter-in-law that questioned his girlfriend's motives and accused her of stealing from him. Darrell's girlfriend later told investigators that he seemed sad and upset by the messages. She left to collect the granddaughter at approximately 8 in the evening. When she returned, Darrell was in bed, but he couldn't sleep. He got up, and when his girlfriend went to look for him, she found him in his office chair, holding what she believed to be a gun to his head. He sounded like he was crying and shouted at her to go back to bed. She pleaded with him while backing away. Then she heard a single gunshot and immediately dialed 911. Police responded to the call at approximately 2 in the morning. Upon arriving at the residence, officers discovered Darrell deceased from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The Mojave County Medical Examiner's Office later confirmed the manner of demise as suicide. Toxicology results returned negative for drugs or alcohol. Darrell was completely sober when he died. So, what could have pushed him to such a desperate act? The day after Darrell's demise, Storage Wars cast member Renee Nizoda spoke with TMZ. Renee revealed that Darrell had been the target of relentless cyberbullying from an unknown individual. Nizoda didn't name the perpetrator, but said Darrell had shown him hundreds of messages over the previous 3 months. Messages that escalated in cruelty and frequency. The following day, the Mojave County Sheriff's Office confirmed they were investigating the cyberbullying claims. Sergeant Monica Britado told reporters that investigators had seized Darrell's cell phone and were reviewing his social media accounts for threatening or harassing communications. The investigation, she said, remained active. In July 2026, a more comprehensive police report was released to the public. Investigators had discovered a handwritten note hidden in a bathroom closet near where Darrell was found. Written in unsteady handwriting, the note read, "I could not take any more the Facebook bullying." The note was composed on the back of a document dated February 20th, 2026, 2 months before Darrell's demise, indicating that the harassment had been weighing on him for some time. Police interviewed the individual identified in the report as the alleged online bully. The man was described as extremely uncooperative, denied any involvement in Darrell's demise and insisted he was nowhere near Arizona at the time. He also claimed he had been receiving threats from Darrell's fans and refused to answer further questions. As of August 2026, the Mojave County Sheriff's Office has not filed any charges related to cyberbullying, citing ongoing digital forensic analysis. A spokesperson said the investigation could take several more weeks, and no suspect has been publicly named. At the time of his demise, Darrell's net worth was estimated by Celebrity Net Worth at $4 million, though other sources placed it between $2 million and $5 million. His assets included his Lake Havasu City home, a 2018 Ford F-150, and a collection of art and antiques still awaiting appraisal. His auction profits, including the Gutierrez collection, made up the remainder. His estate remains in the custody of his daughter Tiffany, pending the resolution of his will, with his 4 children expected to inherit his assets. On June 30th, 2026, Darrell's former co-stars gathered for a celebration of life in his honor. Novelty $30 bills featuring Darrell's face and the words, "The Wow Factor," his signature catchphrase, were distributed to attendees. No public memorial service has been announced. Darrell's body was cremated on April 27, 2026, and his ashes will be kept by his children, per his wishes. Which of Darrell's finds intrigued you the most? And do you think there were deeper struggles that pushed Darrell to end it all? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.